Hi, I'm Terry O'Reilly, founder of OBP Australia, a service for overseas-born professionals looking to either get their first job in Australia or advance their career once they're established in their profession. Welcome to the podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to an ex-OBP Australia client who's been successful in finding employment in Australia. We'll get to hear about their journey and what advice they have for job seekers. Dheeraj is a civil engineering project manager and has worked in regional Australia handling tender management, contract management and capital works delivery. He's managed the design and delivery of complex building projects involving a multidisciplinary team of architects, consultants and contractors. Currently he's working on a Victorian Big Build project in Melbourne. Dheeraj kick-started his engineering career in Nepal, working as a civil engineer for a multinational telecom company. He moved to Australia in 2012 to pursue a master's degree and enhance his learnings further in project management. Apart from work, he also volunteers at the local CFA, that's the Country Fire Association, training to be a volunteer firefighter. I first met Dheeraj in 2015, after he'd completed his Masters in Civil Engineering. My initial impression was that he was professional in his approach to finding work, methodical, thorough, and showed great attention to detail. All prerequisites for being an excellent engineer and leader. Dheeraj, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Terry.
Now, we first met in 2015, that's right?
Yeah, that's right, 2015. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd already been here a couple of years completing your Masters at that stage, is that right?
Yeah, so I moved to Australia around 2012, so July 2012 for my master's degree. I was living in Melbourne for the whole time, and then finished my master's around, again, mid-year 2014. And then was working when I met you at that time. I just got my permanent residency, and then could apply for more proper jobs, more proper engineering jobs at the time. Yeah.
Now it's been quite a while, so I'm going to ask you to try and take yourself back to that time when you first arrived as a student.
Yeah.
Tell us about those first few weeks and months. Can you remember the feeling?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that was a big milestone in my own personal life. I went. My learning trajectory was really steep. The curve was really steep at the first few months. I moved to Melbourne. The first few weeks, I lived at a shared house that one of my friends' sister was renting in Murrumbina. Spent a few first nights over there, and then after a week or so, I was able to find accommodation of my own. I moved into that house in Glenroy, thinking that I'll be there for just a semester. It's like 3 or 4 months, but ended up living there for 3 years. Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's always good to have people here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and the people that I stayed first few weeks, I hadn't even met them, so I'm really in debt to them. Like they took me in and then helped me establish myself in the first few weeks. I think that made a lot of things easier. Yeah.
Sure. And did you do any sort of internship as part of your masters, or was it all coursework or research work?
Yeah, that was all coursework. Coursework based. There was small research component over there, but we had a industry led or industry promoted a design project. So it was like 7, 8 students coming together and then work basically like a team. There'll be a project manager, a geotechnical engineer, structural engineer, all working together. Everyone had a specific role like you have in the workplace, and that gave us a real life scenario. And at that time, that project, we based it upon development project around Fisherman's Bend. I think that was a real life scenario for me, and helped me understand a lot of basics that I didn't get in my bachelor's degree. Yeah.
Right. So you finished your masters. Tell us about what you did to find work in your profession initially, and whether that changed, whether your strategy changed at the start or you just continued to seek work in that way.
Yeah, so 2014, mid 2014, finished my masters, and then I was applying at that time as well. Really actively applying while in uni. I knew that as soon as I got my master's degree, I would be eligible to apply for permanent residency because it was point based, and I knew where I stood in that point system. I had my IELTS, the English exam, done while I was in uni as well. So all that ticked off, but the job component, I didn't anticipate it to be that difficult. Yeah, so coming mid-year, I think most of the companies who were hiring for grad years, they wouldn't take anyone. There was no intake in mid-year, so I had to wait quite a few months to apply for a proper grad role position. But meantime, I was applying in the small companies as well. And then there were two parts for the rejection. One, I didn't had permanent residency or permanent visa. I was in a extended visa after my student visa, but that didn't give the employers assurance. And the second one was I didn't have any local experience, so that turned out to be a bit challenging for myself than what I anticipated. Yeah.
So what happened that enabled you to get your first job? Did you get it
Uh,
when you still had the temporary visa, or did you get permanent before you got the job?
Yeah, so when the time around I met you, I think it's 2015 July, June,
Yep.
July. I think I remember that being a cold day, winter day that I drove to your office in Thornbury. Yeah, so yeah, at that time I had my permanent residency sorted out, and then I was actively applying, and I was applying a few places. I didn't had any luck. So I thought I would change my strategy, and then I spoke to yourself. You had a review of my CV, and gave me a bit of understanding. Those employer lookout some tips. So I changed my strategy. One, how I approached the employers, and then the second was just to have a different approach to how I get to the prospective employers. And I at that time I did had two good interviews with really tier one consultant companies. So they're really big consultant engineering companies. I was really close, almost to the last round to one, but yeah, I got rejected. I didn't get much feedback on that rejection, but I kind of anticipated it was because of my visa condition at that time as well. Um, Also, yeah, so the CV, there was automated CV system, most of the grad application. So I was doing something wrong, which I couldn't go past the first stage. So I think after meeting you, changed a bit of outlook of the CV, so a bit of formatting, bit of text, the sentences, language, and active searching got a bit different as well for me. Yeah.
Sure. And do you remember that interview which landed you the job? And
Yeah.
yeah, tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that. What sort of interview was it?
Yeah, I think at the time it kind of worked out as I would say. I won't attribute this whole to luck because if I wouldn't go there, apply with a good CV, they wouldn't hire me. But kind of I happened to see this ad in Wodonga, out in regional Victoria. Honestly, I didn't know where was Wodonga in the map of Victoria, and I had never been to Wodonga before that time. So it just yeah, I applied to that position, and then they called me for or actually they had me for a phone interview, and then yeah, they had after that the second was face-to-face interview up in Wodonga itself, and then yeah, just chatting with them. I chatted with my experience that I had in engineering back in Nepal. And then I think they my values I think lined up with theirs, and what I was looking for in that stage of my career. So kind of worked out, I would say. Yeah.
Great. And for those people who don't know, Wodonga is on the Murray River, which is the
It
border
is.
between Victoria and New South Wales.
It is, yes. So
Yep.
if you have driven from Melbourne to Sydney or Sydney to Melbourne, you would not miss Wodonga because it's right on the border. As soon as you cross the Murray River, you'd see a big sign, Albury to Wodonga, Wodonga to Albury sign. Yeah.
And how long is the drive from Melbourne? About 3 hours, is it?
From 3 hours, yeah,
Yeah.
about 3 hours from if you say from Epping, yeah.
And how was life in the country? Regional Australia.
Amazing, amazing. I loved it. I was initially there for 2 years contract. I didn't expect myself like living there for longer. Then I stayed there for about 3.5 years, and enjoyed every bit of it. Yeah, I moved out around 2019, and then that was not a push factor. That was more like getting back in the big smoke
Mm.
in back in Melbourne. So a lot of pull factors, I would say. But yeah, I think the plan is to go back there in 20, 30 years time again.
Right. So what's attractive about Wodonga and regional Australia in general?
Yeah.
Because it is a good option for many skilled migrants coming over here.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And as I said earlier, like my initial right after uni, most of my Australian friends, they were getting jobs here in Melbourne, consulting, contracting, tier one contracting. So I was more focused in Melbourne as well. But I think regional Victoria was not in my option in the start, but later on when I found, there was potential and there were like a job market out there and really lucrative job market out there. Yeah, kind of, yeah, just happened to stumble upon that, and then yeah, just work there. Life is, I would say, it's what you make up. Some people they get bored really easily. Some people they find it really exciting living up in the country. Luckily, I happened to make really good friends over there. The like Wodonga was perfectly situated, not far from like drive distance from Sydney, not far from Falls Creek, Mount Hotham, Mount Hume Lake, just over there. So it it matched with my active lifestyle as well.
Yeah, I've
And
seen
then
some of your posts. You're quite an active guy. You do a bit of running and hiking
yeah,
and so on.
yeah, no, I think I would say I've been a bit slack after COVID or during COVID, but I think I was my fittest and my best form in my running as well when I was up in Wodonga. Yeah, we had a good team going on there with running and all those city to city runs, something like that. And then there was always like hiking spots. Yeah, any weekend you pick, it'll be amazing weather, and then you go for hiking to Beechworth, up in Beechworth, or somewhere in Stanley or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a nice a rail trail. I don't know if you've seen that
There
a
is,
bike ride. It traces
yeah,
the old train track from
there is,
around
yeah,
Beechworth.
yeah, yeah. While I was working in the local government, local council over there, yeah, I
Mhm.
think there was a few projects that to upgrade those rail tracks for bike riding and yeah, and save like you can run on those tracks as well. And there was beautiful running circuits along Lake Hume as well. Yeah.
And you're active in the local CFA, which is the Country Fire Association. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So my first introduction to CFA was up in Wodonga, but I was not a member over there, as I knew few people from work who were involved in Wodonga CFA. Then yeah, I decided to join CFA when I moved back to Melbourne, and currently I'm living in South Morang. So yeah, I decided to volunteer with them a few months ago actually. I think it worked out with my timing, and then I'm still what they call a rookie firefighter, which is like still in training. But yeah, if I finish that training, I'll in time and finish all those my coursework online, then I'll be able to be a volunteer firefighter in the next few
That's
months. Yeah.
great. So what inspired you to do that?
I think something different than my day job. So I'm working as a project manager in a construction project, and then I get to see a bit of action in the site as well, a bit behind the desk. But yeah, CFA was more like always. I was looking for any cause to volunteer. In uni as well, I volunteered in few of the clubs and all. But yeah, I wanted to find a cause that would go all around the year. And then yeah, did kind of happen to find it was between SCS and CFA. So, but yeah, I think CFA is conveniently located to where I live. So yeah, just yeah, so went with CFA.
Sure. And just going back to when you came to Australia again,
Yeah.
I noticed that Canada's increased its intake of skilled migrants hugely. Why did
Hmm.
you pick Australia?
I think at that time, so 2012, my thought process was I would want to move in a country where, first English is the language of, education. Like, there was like lucrative spots and scholarship offered in Germany as well. And I had a few friends who moved to Germany, but yeah, I spent at that time 20, 24 years of my life learning English, and then yeah, I wouldn't be bothered to learn another language, let alone for a master's degree. So one English speaking country, second would be the lifestyle. So always I think had a good image of Australia, and then given to Canada, America, or the UK as well. I think yeah, there was a good balance over here. And after I finished my studies, there were pathways that would lead to a permanent residency and a good job opportunity. I think that during my research that stood out for Australia. Yeah.
Right. So a few logical reasons why it would be a good choice there. Um, Bringing you to today,
Yeah.
you're a civil engineering project manager. Tell us a little bit about what you do on a daily basis.
Daily basis. So I'm involved in one of the big build project here in Melbourne. So my day to I've recently changed role actually with this current one, but yeah, will be procurement mostly at this point in time. But I was doing utility relocation, so moving sewer, telecom, water asset before the construction of a road happens. It would be a lot of stakeholder engagement. So there would be a lot of local governments, local clubs, schools, private firms that we have to liaise with to undertake our works with them. And then, yeah, plan ahead of those works, plan the disruptions, work with the contractors to plan those disruptions. Um, Other Sunday, I'll be working on just doing some pretty pictures. So I'm not necessarily in AutoCAD. We would have like dedicated people in doing those AutoCAD, but do some mud maps and give it to the experts to draw it beautifully. Do something in GIS, a lot of Excel spreadsheets to to track program cost, to track progress and all that as well. They
And
would
are
be
you working from an on-site office, or are you in a head office somewhere?
at this point, I'm based in the city. So yeah, so it's that phase in my project, my current project, and I'm more office based at the moment, but looking to be on site in next year. So previously in another role in the same organization, I was on site as well. So I used to go on. It was not dedicated role on site. But yeah, I had to go now and then just to get the progress and get the progress photos to for reporting to upper management. Yeah, go on site to check a few things. If there was a delivery, have a look. If there were some issues, there were some complaints from the stakeholders, have a look. Investigate and report back or verify those claims. Yeah.
Sure. And I would imagine with any major construction project, there are lots of problems. What are
Yeah.
the main challenges a civil engineer faces on such a project?
I think it varies in what stage of the project you are. The challenge we have is like okay, like we have a program, an idea, how we engineers understand how to deliver it, but telling that story of how we would deliver in what manner to a regular person on the street and telling it really in simple words. I think that's the biggest challenge, and keep and showing them that what we're doing. Sometimes the decision or the process might not be favored or not be favorable for that stakeholder, but we try to explain that there's certain pain, and the other side what we're trying to gain is what we try to tell them. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges for any engineer, I would say, to interpret the drawings and the process in simple words.
So
Other challenge,
stakeholders could be local citizens, it could be
yeah. Yeah.
traders,
Yeah,
council,
trainers, clubs, yeah,
clubs. Yep.
local government councils,
Yep.
any interested group, any soccer clubs, yeah, all that. Yeah.
Sure. And I mean, it must be rewarding seeing something go up that you're part of and
Yeah,
managing. What do
yeah.
you see as the most rewarding part of being a
I think
project manager on something like that?
at this point, yeah, there's planning involved in doing a work. So this one project I delivered, there's a saying called, measure twice, build once. It literally happens that like we spend almost a year, 18 months, 12 to 18 months planning something, and the actual build is like 12 weeks, 3 months. We have seen that happen, and then actually seeing those utilities getting built, and then those services getting built, and then getting used by the purpose it was built for. That's really rewarding. And sometimes I drive past as well. Like I see, oh, that's I worked on that one.
Yeah.
So
Something
that
to
that
tell your kids, eh?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. And then the project I'm in as well is it's like really a legacy project. So I drive there around, next 7 or 8 years, and yeah, I would be proudly saying that, I worked in that project in this section exactly, and then yeah, that's I think that's really good. That's beauty of being a civil engineer. Any like you see physical thing getting built right up from the ground, and then there's this mammoth structure in front of you. Yeah,
Great. And from a professional development perspective,
yeah.
do you do anything that is formally organized, or is it all incidental and naturally evolving as part of your job? How are you approaching, and how do other engineers in your industry approach professional development in Australia?
Yeah. So talking my workplace, the workplaces I've worked before and at the moment, so professional development is encouraged. There is a 70-20-10 rule, which I found like after joining this organization. So 70 comes from your people around you, your experience, the people who you work around yourself, like looking at your seniors, what your counterparts are doing, what people are doing in the industry. 70 comes from there. 20 comes from your shadowing someone again, like having a mentor, talking someone one to one, having a role model. If you find a senior project manager in the same project or other project, that comes from there. And then 10 comes from your actual formal education. So 10 is if you attend seminars, you attend a course, it comes with formal education. So I was always in the view before that was like 50% or 60% come from a formal education. But I think it's only 10% that counts.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's formal education is like has less weight, but if it's no good, and I can attest to that, as it's no good for that education if you can't implement it, and then you can't see or discuss that with someone. So if you go on a seminar, meet like-minded people, then you discuss the ideas and you discuss your experience, and you get more out of it than starting a book and just keeping to yourself, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a 90% breakdown on actually doing the job, really, isn't it? 70%, working day
Yeah,
to day, and 20%
yeah,
tailing somebody. And
yeah.
that's you learn by doing, I guess, which is the same for
Yeah,
most
exactly.
jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then it's like learning on the job. Yeah, I think that's really encouraged at the moment. And there's so much resources around for professional development. Like you don't need to, for example, like if you go into Engineers Australia, so there's so many resources out there. You can tie up with someone in in Perth, for example, and talk to them as a mentor, and then learn from them or something like that. So if you're really keen, it depends what you're after, but if you're really keen, there are a lot of resources, out there to really upgrade your professional development.
Right. So you've worked here for quite a few years now. Did you work in Nepal at all, or did you come straight through Bachelor Masters?
No, I worked for about 2.5 years in Nepal,
Right.
right after my undergrad in 2009. So I worked in a multinational company over there who were building telecommunication towers. So that was my first job out of uni in Nepal.
Yep.
I would say that job experience also contributed a bit to getting my first job here in Australia.
I'm
Um,
sure.
so
I'm sure that's not a lot of people have that. I mean, if you come here straight from bachelor, masters, no
yeah,
experience, it's pretty
yeah.
tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I luckily that I was going for grad positions after my masters as well. Sometime I was getting too experienced, or I was not fresh out of the uni, so I had some experience as well. So some encouraged me to go for a little bit experienced grad position as well. So it was a learning process. But yeah, the position I got as a first job in Australia was a project engineer job, which was a bit above than a grad position. Yeah,
And,
and
and how would you compare the workplace culture between Nepal and Australia? So things like, management style or
yeah,
how
there's
people
there's
interact at work.
Yeah, oh, that's huge difference. Like even if although I was working in a multinational company with people from so many nationalities, they're working in Nepal. But I think the culture was set that you don't ask questions to your seniors. You don't yes sir, no sir. If they ask you to jump, you don't ask. How deep is that pool? So you just follow those orders and just get your marching orders and keep going. So over here, there's more collaborative approach. So that I got to learn in uni during my master's degree. So even master's degree, like it was yes a degree, but for me it was like more of a cultural introduction to Australian workplace and Australian
So by the
the
time you got your first paid job in Australia, you were a little bit familiar with the way things operate?
yeah, and not just in uni, but even in like
Yeah.
I was working in a restaurant. I worked in an outlet like Ways Outdoors and all that. So I was a bit aware of it. Was like there was really a casual culture, like really frank culture between the senior management and the employee as well. So yeah, it's not a culture shock, but it was really easy to communicate with your upper management, and then you could give on feedback. That was something that unheard for me. Like you give feedbacks to your 360 feedback to your seniors, like your upper management, and then that was something that's new to me. And then I think that's how is a continuous improvement is achieved, I would say. And that was a good culture that was introduced over here.
Did
It's
that feel a bit uncomfortable at the early
it did,
stages?
it did, it did. So when you in our first job, you do that end of the year review, you have to give your manager a feedback, and then what feedback you give, all good, all bad. And I had some people give who were really straightforward, or I told that, and they took that on board. Even you give your feedback. Oh, this was in uni actually. Yeah, you give your feedback, end of the year feedbacks to your professors and your lecturers, and then tell they were happy to learn what went wrong during the course, and they were fixing it the next year right away. And then that happened. Yeah, in back in Nepal when I was studying, you don't ask questions to your you don't question back your professors. I
Right.
think that was a big culture difference
Yeah,
again.
that's a
Yeah,
significant difference
it
in
is.
the way
It is.
people operate, isn't it?
It is. Yes. Yes.
So people who've never experienced that Australian workplace culture before and are coming from something quite different,
Yeah.
what advice could you give them, to help them fit in, to feel a bit more comfortable, perhaps?
Yeah.
What do people talk about at work? What advice would you give for somebody who's had no exposure at all to
Yeah.
Australian workplace?
Yeah. If you're coming here, if you migrate here as experience, like not through a student pathway, and then from day one you had your permanent residency, I would say don't be afraid or don't be ashamed of taking a customer service job. That I would say that helped me give so much of education on the culture and way to speak to people, and the lingos and all those jargons and all that. First is I think you feel comfortable. It's not that you have an accent, or you have less knowledge of the Australian society. Don't be afraid. Just speak to it. They would understand. And then people are, I would say I have traveled a bit, and then I would say Australian peoples are really accommodating. I would say definitely hand on heart. I've lived here for a while. I've traveled a while, and say Australian people are like society over here. We are a bit accommodating than other society that I've been. Um, yeah, don't be afraid. You don't have to. And one thing, don't be afraid, but don't try too hard to fit in as well. Like if you don't understand the footy game that they were talking on Monday, like don't try to fit in. Like it's okay, you don't understand footy. They might not understand cricket, so that's fine. Um, Second is like, yeah, just just be casual. In my culture, again, I said earlier, like you don't ask questions over here. Ask questions, but don't ask questions for the sake of asking a question. But if you have something burning, then yeah, okay, don't you might be uncomfortable in asking in front of 15, 20 people. Ask in private. Hey, I was thinking about this. This occurred to me after you presented. So what is this? So I might be wrong, or over there. And then they might say, oh, yeah, that's a good point. Or I didn't think about that. Oh yeah, actually yes, that this is like they'll explain to you. So asking and yeah, just feel relaxed, I would say. Yeah.
That's great advice. Particularly, I think the suggestion about the customer service role, I
Yeah.
don't think you can overestimate how important that is because
Uh-huh.
it's transactional. The dealings you're
Yeah.
serving somebody or helping
Yeah.
somebody and them complaining or whatever. It's
Yeah.
really what happens at work in work
Yeah.
situations. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And the thing is customer service, well, I've done few odd jobs and those learning jobs. But customer service I say particular because you don't know what the other person is thinking, how that person approached to you. You might be in a bad mood, but you still have to be welcoming and then put a smile on your face and then be patient with the request. And that teaches you a lot. And then yeah, it would be someone just walking off the street and then requesting you something on the go, and then you would be there to serve that customer. So I think it teaches you a bit. Every time I think like I worked in Tangi Parlor, I worked in Ways Outdoors, and I would meet an interesting customer every other day. So that was really fun. Like there are a lot of funny stories, but what they taught me was like there's everyone has a different need, and then you're there to solve their problem, whatever. And you sometimes you can't solve the problem, but you go out and seek help within your team member and then solve the customer's problem. So yeah,
right. And that sort of interaction, I think, really helps with interview practice as well. I mean, I do interview
that's
coaching, but it's more than that. It's about how you interact with people, how you
that's right. Yeah,
communicate. It's
yeah.
not just, trying to find the right answer to interview questions. It's not really what it's about. It's about the
That,
communication. Yeah.
That's right. And then, first few interviews I had, I was so tense. Like I literally people tell me like, do you want some water? Like you don't look good. And then, like I remember those I look at those embarrassing first series before I met you, Terry. And then I think I recorded one time like giving myself interview before, and then later on, like when you get used to it, you feel confident in yourself, and the second is like the interview just becomes a conversation between yourself and the prospective employer. It just becomes the great interviews that I've been into, which I feel really comfortable, has been like a conversation, like you speaking to someone, yeah, like
That's right.
this, like what I'm doing with you right now. It would be like that.
Yeah. And then they can imagine what it would be like to work with you as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that's
Yeah,
what a conversation is. It's what you do at work. If
yeah,
you're presenting or giving some very formal speech in an interview,
yeah,
that's not really
yeah.
the way people interact. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good advice.
That's
That
right. Yeah, and there's like after that, over the years, I've now been on interview panel and I've seen a few train wrecks, and then I was one of that train wreck.
yeah,
Sometimes I that might be that conversation for a different day, but yeah, just relax, and like you have your experience, you have your degrees, you know what you're doing. Uh, be relaxed, deep
it
breath, and just answer. Yeah.
putting yourself in that position, it's quite uncomfortable for the interviewers seeing somebody suffer, isn't it?
It is, and then sometime that person looks so good in paper, and then you
Mm.
know that person can deliver, but there'll be, yeah, but you still have that person need to do good in interview as well. There'll be a HR person sitting next to you as well, and but the technical aspect of that person, but yeah, yeah, sometimes we really have to help someone in the interview as well. Take up half an hour break, ask them to come back, and then do it again. Yeah,
That's very nice of you.
yeah,
As in, some interviewers wouldn't do that, so that's great that you offer that
yeah.
as part of that process. So that's really useful advice, I think, for people listening. So thank you very much, and congratulations on what you've achieved, both in regional areas in Australia and in your work in a big city. I think the whole immigration process is a courageous one. It's
Thanks, Terry.
tough,
It is.
and
It is.
you've done a really good job and succeeded in many areas there. Just before we finish up, do you have any advice for somebody who's about to embark on the journey? So they're not here yet, maybe they're still in Nepal or Pakistan or Iran, somewhere to come
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Before they leave, is there anything they can do?
I would say do your own research. Like, do your own research. Yes, there are help out there. There are, migration agent. There, I know people, who have people hired to write their Engineers Australia competency statement as well. I would say like write your own statements. You would need help to to fine tune your CVs, you fine tune your interviews, but you have to do your own research as well. You have to do your legwork. You want to have a coach. You don't want to have a babysitter who would place you in a job over here in Australia. So to start that process, if you are listening here from outside Australia, I would say that open the website. There's so much of information over there in every employer website. There's a calendar, there's a grad connection calendar up in website. So I would say do your research of the company, the job market, the city you're living, the culture of the city. Have that basic understanding. So when you come over here as a professional who wants to have a prospective employer in the city, then you know at least a bit about it. And after that, when you're in the country, you meet other lovely people, and then you get to know more about them as well. So I would say do your research while you have the time and the comfort of your home
Right.
outside Australia. Yeah.
So research and writing your own supporting statement for Engineers Australia, it helps you get clarity yourself. I think if you can
Yeah.
explain what
Yeah.
you've done, it helps you sort of formulate what you want to do and how that connects
Exactly.
the whole
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of if you happen to have an workplace professional engineering job over here, you would be writing so many reports and emails and memos that Engineers Australia competency statement would be nothing. But let's start with that, and then over there it would be like your own self-reflection statement. Like
Yes.
I've seen so many coaches, life coaches, saying that write your goals, write your achievements, write your weaknesses in a piece of paper and read it loud. I think for me, like writing those statements was, and then sometimes like people from my region, like we are really shy to talk about ourselves. And we struggle to talk about ourselves writing or in speaking. But those kind of statements help you self-reflect, and then if there's anything lacking, then I would say definitely identify what are your lackings and shortcomings so that you can improve. And when you go to a career coach or anyone, so you say, okay, I'm lacking in one-to-one speaking. Can you help me with it? And then at that point of time, you'd be making most out of that coaching. Yes.
Yeah. That's good advice. Well,
Yeah.
Dheeraj, thank you for joining us today. And
Yeah.
it's been great to catch up after such a long time, too. It was many years ago that we first met. And thanks for sharing your experience. And I think you're an inspiration, and many people will take a lot from this. So good luck with the future and keep in touch.
Not a problem. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me.
OBP Australia provides guidance and support with job applications and approaching employers, industry awareness, interview coaching, and language and communication. You'll also be introduced to your professional peers already working in Australia. so you can get the lowdown on what's happening in your industry or profession. If you're looking for guidance and support to find your next job, email me at terry@obpaustralia.com.au. Let's talk.